Hey everybody, it's Jim and welcome back to another lesson of Introduction to Korn Shell. Last time we went over how you take a file that has text in it and use it as input to a Korn Shell script. Today we're going to go over a practical example of that. Now, why would you want to do something like this? Why would you want to store text in a file and use it as input for your Korn Shell script? Well, this allows you, if you do that, to run your script at any time you want if it's in cron tab or if it's in a batch type of program. You don't have to be there physically to enter the data in because the data is already there on the operating system and you just take and read it from that text file into your program. So you could have a file set to run, a script set to run at 3 a.m. in the morning, and it would automatically read the data from that input file and you didn't have to be there. Also, if you're testing a script out and you're making adjustments to it, and that script requires input data as part of your testing, having the data in a file does two things. One, it saves you typing time, especially if you have to enter in, say, 100 lines of data on the command line versus having it in a text file. And two, it ensures that you get consistent data every single time that you run the script. You're not going to mistype something. So the example that we are using today is we are going to prompt the user to enter numbers and then we are going to average them. We're going to use that same logic where we have a read statement as our test condition for our while loop. And after we're done entering all the data in, we're going to calculate the average provided that the user entered data. We will have an if, then else statement. If the user entered data, calculate the average. Otherwise, else, don't calculate the average. Tell them to enter data next time they run the script. So here we go. First thing we do is we set up a variable to keep track of how many scores they entered. Next thing we do is we keep track of the total of all the numbers they entered. And then at the end, we're going to average them. And that will be total divided by count, provided that count is not 0, because you can't divide by 0. Now, we prompt the user to enter a score, and the -n means no carriage return at the end of our print statement. And just a reminder, the correct way to give a read statement a false value is to enter a control D, which stands for end of file. And here is our while statement. We have a while statement with a test condition. This right here is the test condition. It says read score. You wait for the user to enter a number and put it in here. Provided that the user does not enter a control D, which is end of file, then this statement comes out true. Therefore, our test condition is true. Therefore, our while test condition is true. So we go inside of the do to done portion of our script. And what that does is it increments our counter by 1, so we know how many entries they have entered. It simply prints out the entry number and the score they entered, just for our peace of mind. It then adjusts the total, and it prompts the user to enter a new score. And then it goes down to the done, which brings us back up to this right here. And once again, to do math within Korn Shell, you use the double parentheses, and you do not have to put $signs in front of variable names when you are inside of the double parentheses. So every time the user enters a value, it gets read into score. This read score statement comes out true. Therefore, we go inside of our do to done portion of our while loop, and we adjust the count, and we adjust the score, and we prompt them again until the user enters a control D, which means end of file. That returns a false value to the read statement. That means this test is false. That means we go down to our done portion of our while loop and proceed execution of the program from there. Which brings us to an if, then, else statement. Our if statement says, if the person entered data, then perform the average. Otherwise, tell them you did not enter a value. So we check to see if count is 0. If 0, they didn't enter data. Let me rephrase that. We check to make sure that count is not 0. If count is not 0, then we calculate the average, which is just total divided by count, and then we print the average. However, if the count is 0, then this test is false. So therefore, we go down to our else portion of our if then else statement, and we tell them you did not enter a value. So let's run this script. Score 56, 27, 156. And we hit a Control D, and the average comes out to be 79. Let's clear the screen. Let's rerun the program. Let's hit Control D, so the count is still 0. And as you can see, you did not enter a value. Probably should have put a carriage return or a blank print statement in front of this so that this ended up on its own line, but oh well. Now remember, in order to take data and give it to an input file, give it to a Korn Shell program, we take the input file and we point it to the name of the program. And as you can see, it does in fact say that we entered our first score is 95, our second score was 90, our third score was 100. Now, you see this right here. This is when the program, after getting to 100, hit the end of file marker, and end of file marker, or Control D, is what causes a read statement to have a false value, which causes our while read score statement to come out false. Therefore, we broke out of our while statement and then went down to the if portion of our program to calculate the average. And we did in fact calculate the average.